Monaco, May 2025. The Grand Casino's ballroom shimmered under a constellation of chandeliers, their light fracturing across diamond necklaces and polished cufflinks. Champagne flutes clinked, and laughter curled like smoke through the air, thick with the scent of oud and ambition. Elise Moreau stood at the balcony's edge, her emerald gown a sleek cascade against her skin, her fingers tight around a glass of Dom Perignon. At 32, she was a titan of cryptocurrency, her name a currency in itself, hard-won, forged in code and grit. But tonight, her pulse thrummed with something sharper than triumph. Victor Lang was here. Her mentor, her betrayer. He lounged across the room, silver hair catching the light, his smile a honed blade. 2 years ago, he'd stolen her algorithm, the backbone of her first blockchain, and left her scrambling to rebuild. She'd clawed her way back, richer, stronger, but the scar remained. Tonight she'd face him. Tonight she'd reclaim what was hers. Her gaze snagged on a stranger by the auction podium. Tall, with dark hair that fell in soft waves and a tuxedo that clung to his frame, he moved with a predator's ease. His eyes, storm gray, piercing, met hers and the air thickened, charged with something unspoken. He raised his glass, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Elise's breath hitched, her focus splintering. "Who's that?" she murmured to Lila, her assistant, who hovered nearby, tablet glowing in her hands. "Julian Voss," Lila said, voice low. "Art dealer, big in Dubai and New York. Word is, he's brokering the Basquiat tonight." Elise's eyes lingered. Dangerous, not just his looks, but the way he seemed to see her, past the armor she'd spent years forging. She turned back to the crowd, forcing her resolve. Victor was her target. Revenge was her fuel. But Julian's gaze trailed her like a shadow, promising chaos she hadn't planned. The auctioneer's gavel cracked, calling the next lot. Elise drained her champagne, the bubbles sharp on her tongue. She stepped forward, heels clicking on marble, her heart a war drum. Victor's laughter rang out, and her spine steeled. But Julian's presence lingered, a spark she couldn't ignore. The gala pulsed with excess, a glittering microcosm of wealth and power. Caviar gleamed on silver trays, passed by waiters in crisp white jackets. A string quartet wove Vivaldi's notes into the air, their melodies tangling with the hum of conversation. Deals brokered in whispers, alliances sealed with smiles. Elise navigated the crowd, her emerald gown catching the light, her smile a practiced mask. She'd built her fortune on blockchain, turning lines of code into millions, but these rooms, thick with old money and older egos, still made her feel like the scholarship kid from Brooklyn. Her anxiety, a constant companion, buzzed beneath her skin, sharper tonight. Victor Lang stood near the bar, holding court with a cluster of financiers, his silver hair gleaming under the chandeliers. His presence was a fist around her lungs. 2 years ago, he'd been her mentor, the one who saw her potential when she was just a coder with a dream. He'd taught her the game, how to pitch, how to charm, how to win. Then he'd taken her algorithm, her life's work, and sold it as his own. She'd been left with nothing but rage and a hard drive she'd backed up by chance. Now she was richer than he'd ever be, but the betrayal still burned. "Elise Moreau," Victor drawled as she approached, his voice silk over steel. His eyes glinted, amused, as if she were a child playing at his table. "You've done well for yourself." Her jaw tightened, but her smile didn't waver. "No thanks to you." The financier shifted, sensing the tension. Victor's laugh was low, indulgent. "Still bitter? Success suits you better than grudges, my dear." The "my dear" landed like a slap, but before she could fire back, a new presence cut through the air. Julian Voss. He appeared at her side, his tall frame a quiet storm, his tuxedo tailored to perfection. Up close, his storm-gray eyes held a depth that unsettled her, like a sea hiding currents. "Miss Moreau," he said, his voice low, accented faintly, Dutch perhaps, smoothed by years abroad. "Your reputation precedes you." Julian Voss. He extended a hand, his grip warm, steady, lingering a beat too long. She shook it, her pulse betraying her calm. And yours, Mr. Voss. The Basquiat's yours, I hear. For now. His smile was a challenge, sharp and inviting. Care to bid against me? The crowd pressed closer, Victor's presence fading to static. Julian's gaze held hers, bold yet searching, as if he saw the cracks she hid, the anxiety that clawed at her in quiet moments, the fear she didn't belong. Her stomach twisted, but something else stirred, too heat, sharp and unfamiliar. Another time, she said, stepping back, her voice cooler than she felt. I have business to settle. Victor's laugh sliced through, reclaiming attention. Always the fighter, Elise. Careful. It's a long fall from the top. Her retort was on her tongue, but Julian's hand brushed her arm, light as a whisper. He's not worth your anger, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Let me buy you a drink instead. The invitation hung between them, reckless and tempting. Elise's plan to confront Victor, to lay bare his betrayal, wavered. Revenge had fueled her for years, but Julian's presence was a spark, igniting something she hadn't felt in ages. Desire. Curiosity. A distraction she couldn't afford, yet couldn't resist. She glanced at Victor, his smug smile a taunt, then back at Julian, whose eyes promised more than a drink. Her anxiety hummed, warning her to stay focused, but her heart, traitorous, leaned toward the unknown. One drink, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos within. But don't think you're saving me. Julian's smirk widened. Wouldn't dream of it. They moved toward the bar, the crowd parting like water. Elise's heels clicked on marble, each step a defiance, a victor of her fear, of the voice whispering she was out of her depth. Julian ordered a Negroni for himself, a martini for her, his ease disarming. The bartender slid the drinks across, the martini's olive glinting like a secret. To new beginnings, Julian said, raising his glass. Elise clinked hers against it, her eyes locked on his. To winning. His laugh was low, warm, and for a moment the gala's noise faded. But Victor's shadow lingered, and her anxiety whispered, "This is a mistake." She ignored it, sipping her martini, the gin sharp on her tongue. Tonight she'd play a different game. The yacht rocked gently off Monaco's coast, its deck a polished expanse under a canopy of stars. Julian's vessel, Aurora, was a study in understated wealth, teak floors, cream leather banquettes, and sleek chrome accents that caught the moonlight. Jazz drifted from hidden speakers, a sultry saxophone weaving through the air, mingling with the salt breeze. Elise stood at the railing, her martini cool in her hand, her hair loose and tangling in the wind. The gown from the gala was gone, replaced by a white silk dress that skimmed her curves, simple yet striking. She'd agreed to this dinner on his yacht, against her better judgment, drawn by the pull of Julian's gaze. He leaned against the railing beside her, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The ease of his posture belied the intensity in his eyes, which hadn't left her since they'd boarded. "You don't trust easily," he said, not a question, his voice carrying over the lap of waves. Elise arched a brow, her lips curving. "Should I?" "No." He stepped closer, his scent, sandalwood, salt, a hint of citrus, maddeningly subtle. "But you want to." Her laugh was sharp, a shield, but her pulse quickened. "Bold assumption. Bold's my specialty." His smile was a dare, and damn if it didn't work. They'd been circling each other all evening, trading barbs and half-truths over dinner. Grilled sea bass, truffle risotto, a bottle of Sancerre that cost more than most people's rent. Now, with the crew discreetly absent and the sea stretching endless, the air between them crackled. She turned to face him, the railing cool against her back. "What's your game, Julian? You're not just an art dealer charming his way through Monaco." He tilted his head, studying her. "And you're not just a crypto queen building empires. We're both playing bigger stakes. Her anxiety stirred a familiar hum. She was good at reading people, had to be, coming from nothing, but Julian was a cipher. His charm was too polished, his interest too pointed. Yet his eyes held a flicker of something real, a shadow she recognized. Pain maybe, or guilt. Stakes, she echoed, sipping her martini. Care to share yours? He paused, his gaze drifting to the sea. My family lost everything a decade ago. A scandal, my father's bad deals, my brother's worse ones. I've been rebuilding ever since, but the art world's a brutal place to start over. His voice was steady, but the words carried weight. Your turn. Elise's fingers tightened on her glass. Sharing wasn't her strength. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But his honesty, raw and unexpected, tugged at her. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, she said, her voice quieter than she intended. I coded my way out of Brooklyn, built something from nothing. Then someone I trusted took it all. She didn't say Victor's name, but the bitterness was clear. Julian's eyes softened, but he didn't push. And here you are, still fighting. Always. She met his gaze, the air heavy with unspoken questions. Why did he feel so familiar? Why did she want to tell him more? The saxophone swelled, a mournful note that matched the ache in her chest. Julian set his drink down, his hand brushing hers as he did. The touch was fleeting, but it sent a jolt through her, sharp and electric. Dance with me, he said, not asking. Her instinct was to refuse. Control was her armor, but her body betrayed her, stepping into his space. His hand found her waist, warm through the silk, and hers settled on his shoulder, the muscle firm beneath her fingers. They moved slowly, the yacht sway guiding them, the jazz a pulse that matched her heart. Your trouble, she murmured, her voice low. Likewise. His breath grazed her temple, and she fought the urge to lean in. Her anxiety screamed warnings, he's too close, too dangerous, but her body hummed with want, a reckless pull she hadn't felt in years. The song ended, but they didn't step apart. His hand lingered, his eyes searching hers. What are we doing, Elise? She didn't have an answer. Revenge had been her North Star, Victor her target. But Julian was a detour, a risk, a spark she couldn't douse. Her anxiety clawed, reminding her of every betrayal, every loss. Yet his warmth, his steadiness felt like a lifeline. Complicating things, she said finally, stepping back, her smile wry. But I'm good at complicated. He laughed, soft and genuine, and the sound eased the knot in her chest. The night stretched on, the sea whispering secrets, and for the first time in years, Elise let herself wonder what it might feel like to trust. Dubai, June 2025. The Burj Al Arab's ballroom glittered like a mirage, its dome ceiling a mosaic of gold and sapphire, reflecting the chandelier light onto a sea of silk gowns and tailored suits. Elise stood at the edge of the cryptocurrency summit's main event, her black jumpsuit sharp, sleeveless, with a plunging neckline, drawing eyes as she scanned the room. The air buzzed with the hum of wealth. Blockchain pioneers, venture capitalists, and tech moguls brokering deals over glasses of Krug. At 32, Elise was no longer the outsider. Her platform, Nexus, was the talk of the summit, a transparent blockchain poised to redefine trust in digital finance. Yet her anxiety coiled tight, a serpent whispering she'd never truly belong. She'd come to Dubai to pitch Nexus to a consortium of investors, a deal that could cement her legacy. But Victor Lang's presence, confirmed by Lila's intel, cast a shadow over her focus. He'd been spotted at the summit's opening, his silver hair and smug grin unmistakable. 2 years after stealing her algorithm, he was back, circling like a vulture. Elise's fingers grazed the tablet in her clutch, loaded with her pitch deck. She'd built Nexus to be untouchable, but Victor's knack for sabotage made her stomach churn. Ready to dazzle them? Julian's voice cut through her thoughts, low and warm. He appeared at her side, a vision in a navy suit, his storm-gray eyes catching the light. Since their night on his yacht in Monaco, they'd been a tangle of late-night calls and stolen moments, their chemistry a live wire. But his guardedness, hints of a past he wouldn't share, kept her wary, even as her heart leaned closer. "Born ready," she said, forcing a smile. Her anxiety hummed, louder in crowds, but Julian's presence dulled its edge, a dangerous comfort. "You're not here for crypto, are you?" He chuckled, sipping his whiskey. "Art's my game, but I've got a client interested in your nexus. Digital provenance for rare pieces. Smart move." His gaze lingered, appreciative. "You look like you're about to conquer the world. Or burn it down," she quipped, but her eyes scanned for Victor. The thought of him in this room plotting made her skin prickle. Lila approached, her tablet glowing, her expression tense. "Elise, the investors are ready in the VIP lounge. But heads up, Victor's meeting with some of them now. He's pitching something big." Elise's jaw tightened. "Of course he is." She turned to Julian, her voice clipped. "Duty calls. Stick around. Wouldn't miss it." His hand brushed her wrist, a fleeting anchor, and she fought the urge to linger. The VIP lounge was a cocoon of luxury. Plush velvet sofas, a private bar, and floor-to-ceiling windows framing Dubai's skyline. The Burj Khalifa piercing the dusk. The investors, a mix of Emirati royalty and Silicon Valley tycoons, greeted her with measured nods. Elise launched into her pitch, her voice steady despite the anxiety clawing her chest. Nexus was her shield, her proof she'd risen above Victor's betrayal. She spoke of decentralized trust, immutable records, and a future where no one could steal what was yours. The investors leaned in, questions sharp but intrigued. Then Victor entered, his presence a cold draft. "Impressive, Elise," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "But transparency's a gamble. My platform prioritizes privacy, something investors value more." Her pulse spiked, but she held his gaze. "Privacy's a euphemism for secrecy, Victor. Nexus doesn't hide. It protects." A murmur rippled through the room. An investor, a woman in a ruby hijab, raised a brow. "Bold claim, Ms. Morrow. Can you back it?" Elise tapped her tablet, projecting Nexus's metrics: 99.9% uptime, 0 breaches, a pilot with a major bank. Victor's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. He countered with vague promises of elite partnerships, his charm masking the lack of substance. The investors wavered, and Elise's anxiety surged. She'd prepared for this, but Victor's shadow was relentless. As the meeting ended, Julian waited outside, his expression unreadable. "You held your own," he said, falling into step beside her. "But he's planting doubts." "He always does," she muttered, her heels clicking on marble. "I need air." They stepped onto a private terrace, the desert heat softened by the evening breeze. Dubai's lights glittered below, a constellation of ambition. Elise leaned against the railing, her hands trembling. "He's going to sabotage me again. I can feel it." Julian's hand rested on her shoulder, steadying. "Then we outsmart him. You're not alone in this." The "we" caught her off guard, stirring warmth and wariness. She wanted to trust him, but her past, Victor's betrayal, her mother's harsh words screamed caution. "Why are you here, Julian? Really?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I told you about my family's scandal. My brother's choices cost us everything. I'm in Dubai to close a deal that could rebuild my name. But you," he stepped closer, his voice low, "you're not just a distraction. You're a fire I can't walk away from." Her breath caught, her anxiety warring with desire. His honesty cracked her armor, but doubt lingered. She turned away, gazing at the skyline. "Fires burn out, Julian. Or they destroy. Then let's burn bright," he said, his hand grazing her cheek. The touch sent a shiver through her, and for a moment, she let herself lean into it, the city's pulse matching her own. The desert stretched endless beyond Dubai's edges, a sea of dunes glowing under the moon. Elise stood at the crest of one, her linen scarf fluttering in the breeze, her boots sinking into sand still warm from the day. Julian had insisted on this. A private excursion, a break from the summit's pressure. Now, with their guide tending a campfire nearby and the stars a reckless scatter above, she felt exposed, her defenses crumbling. Julian sat beside her, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his profile sharp against the firelight. The silence between them was heavy, not with tension but with possibility. "You're quiet," he said, tossing a twig into the flames. "Thinking about Victor?" "Always." She hugged her knees, her voice soft. "He's not just a threat. He's a reminder of how naive I was, how easily I trusted." Her anxiety, usually a background hum, surged, her chest tightening. She rarely spoke of this, but Julian's presence coaxed truth she'd buried. He turned to her, his eyes searching. "You're not naive now. You're a force. Doesn't feel like it." She hesitated, then let the words spill. "I have anxiety. Always have. It's worse when I'm fighting battles like this. I second-guess everything. My pitch, my worth, whether I belong in rooms like that ballroom." Julian's hand found hers, his thumb tracing her knuckles. "You belong more than any of them. You built something real, Elise. They're just playing with inherited toys." The warmth of his touch steadied her, but doubt lingered. "You make it sound simple." "It's not. I know." He paused, his voice rougher. "My brother's betrayal, selling our family's assets to cover his debts, left me questioning everything. I still do. But you keep fighting. That's what pulls me in." Her heart stuttered, caught between fear and want. She wanted to believe him, to lean into this fragile trust, but her past was a loud warning. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. "Lila, urgent. Elise, check X. Now." She opened the app, her stomach dropping. A threat posted by an anonymous account accused Nexus of vulnerabilities, claiming insider leaks. The comments were brutal. Overhyped fraud, another crypto scam. Her hand shook as she scrolled, the fire's warmth no match for the chill spreading through her. "Victor," she whispered, her voice raw. "This has his fingerprints." Julian's jaw tightened. "He's escalating. We need to trace the account, counter the narrative." "We." She pulled her hand from his, her anxiety spiking. "This is my fight, Julian. I don't need a savior." "I'm not trying to save you," he said, his voice firm. "I'm offering to stand with you. I've got contacts, PR, tech, even a hacker friend. Let me help." Her instinct was to shut him out, to handle it alone as she always had. But the weight of Victor's attack, the public humiliation, pressed too hard. She met Julian's gaze, his steadiness a lifeline. "Okay," she said, barely audible. "But if you're playing me, I'll burn you down." He smiled, undaunted. "Fair." They returned to the city, the desert's quiet replaced by Dubai's neon pulse. At her suite in the Burj Al Arab, Elise and Lila worked through the night, tracing the anonymous account to a shell company linked to Victor. Julian's hacker contact confirmed it, pulling data Elise couldn't have accessed alone. By dawn, they drafted a response, transparent, technical, debunking the claims with Nexus's audit logs. Elise posted it on X, her tone defiant. "Truth doesn't hide. Nexus stands strong." The tide shifted, supporters rallying, but the damage lingered. Investors were spooked, and Elise's anxiety whispered she'd already lost. Julian stayed, his presence quiet but unwavering, offering coffee and sharp ideas. As the sun rose, painting the sweet gold, she looked at him, exhaustion softening her edges. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice raw. "Because I see you," he said simply. "And I'm not going anywhere." Her heart cracked open, just a fraction but enough to terrify her. Victor's betrayal had taught her trust was a trap. Yet Julian's steadiness, his willingness to fight beside her, felt like a risk worth taking. For now. Paris, June 2025. The Shangri-La Hotel's penthouse suite smelled of lilies and rain, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Eiffel Tower, a steel silhouette against a bruised sky. Elise sat at a glass desk, her laptop open, lines of code scrolling like a war plan. Her fingers moved with precision, but her heart raced, her anxiety a tight coil. Victor's smear campaign on X had rattled her investors, and today's emergency board meeting could decide Nexus's fate. At 32, she'd built an empire from nothing, but one false move and it could crumble. Her black blazer and silk blouse were armor, chosen for their sharp lines, but beneath she felt raw. The Dubai summit had been a battleground. Victor's lies had spread like wildfire, accusing Nexus of vulnerabilities. She and Lila, with Julian's hacker contact, had traced the attack to Victor's shell company and countered with proof of Nexus's security. The X post had regained some trust, but the damage lingered. Investors wanted assurances, and her board was circling, scenting weakness. A knock broke her focus. Lila entered, her tablet glowing, her expression grim. The board's assembling downstairs. They're antsy, Elise. And Victor's been spotted at Lemurus, meeting with one of our investors. Elise's stomach twisted. He's relentless. She closed her laptop, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Any word from Julian? He's on his way, Lila said, softening. He texted, said he's got something on Victor. You trust him? Elise hesitated. Julian Voss, with his storm gray eyes and guarded charm, had become her anchor in Dubai. His support during the X attack a lifeline. But his past, his family's scandal, his brother's betrayal, mirrored her own wounds too closely. Trust was a leap she wasn't sure she could make. I'm trying, she said finally. Let's go. The boardroom was a study in Parisian elegance. Mahogany table, velvet chairs, a chandelier dripping crystals. The board, 8 men and women in tailored suits, greeted her with cool nods. Elise stood at the head, projecting Nexus's metrics onto a screen. Adoption rates up 20%. A new pilot with a European bank. Her voice was crisp, authoritative, but her anxiety clawed, whispering she was an imposter, the Brooklyn coder who'd never belong. Ms. Moreau, said Claire Dubois, a silver-haired investor with a razor-sharp gaze. Your platform's impressive, but these allegations, leaks, vulnerabilities raise concerns. Why should we stay? Elise met her eyes, her pulse pounding. Because Nexus is built on truth. The allegations were fabricated, traced to a competitor's shell company. We've shared our audit logs publicly. No breaches, no weaknesses. She tapped her tablet, displaying the hacker's report. This was a targeted attack to undermine us. We're stronger for it. Murmurs rippled. A younger board member, Amir Khan, leaned forward. And Victor Lang? Rumors tie him to this. He's pitching a rival platform. Elise's jaw tightened. Victor's history speaks for itself. He thrives on deception. Nexus thrives on transparency. The room shifted, some nods, some skepticism. As the meeting ended, Claire pulled her aside. You've got grit, Elise. But grit alone won't save you. Deliver results, or we'll look elsewhere. Elise nodded, her throat tight, and stepped into the hall. Julian waited, leaning against a marble pillar, his navy coat open over a white shirt. His presence was a jolt, easing her tension even as it stirred new questions. You look like you just fought a war, he said, his voice low. Feels like it. She fell into step beside him, the hotel's plush carpet muffling their strides. Lila said you have something on Victor? He nodded, his expression darkening. My contact dug deeper. Victor's platform isn't just a rival. It's built on your old algorithm, the one he stole. He's rebranded it, but the code's a match. Elise stopped, her breath catching. That's enough to bury him. If we play it right. Julian's hand grazed her arm, steadying. I've got a plan, but it means going public, press, maybe a staged event. Risky, but it could end him. Her anxiety surged, the weight of exposure daunting. Going public meant scrutiny, not just of Victor but of her past, her flaws. But the fire in Julian's eyes, his belief in her, tipped the scale. Do it, she said, her voice firm. I'm done hiding. They moved to the penthouse, rain pattering against the windows. Julian spread papers across the desk, screenshots, code comparisons, emails linking Victor to the shell company. Elise's heart raced. Not just from the plan but from Julian's closeness, his sandalwood scent mingling with the lilies. He was risking his own contacts, his reputation for her fight. Why? As if sensing her question, he looked up, his gaze raw. My brother's betrayal cost me my family's name. I see Victor doing the same to you. I can't just watch. Her chest ached, her walls cracking. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his. Thank you, she whispered, the words heavy with meaning she wasn't ready to name. He held her gaze, the air charged. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the spell. My contact's ready, he said, his voice rough. Tomorrow we strike. Elise nodded, her heart a war drum. Tomorrow she'd face Victor's ghost. Tonight, Julian's presence was a promise she wasn't sure she could trust, but one she couldn't resist. The Galerie Gagosian in Paris was a temple of art and power, its white walls stark against the vibrant canvases that lined them. Tonight it hosted a private auction, a glittering affair of collectors and elites, the air thick with the scent of tuberose and ambition. Elise stood near the entrance, her crimson dress a bold slash against the monochrome space, its fitted silhouette accentuating her resolve. Her heart pounded, her anxiety a live wire, but her expression was steel. Tonight, they'd expose Victor Lang, using his own greed against him. Julian had orchestrated it. A fake Rothko listing, bait Victor couldn't resist. The plan was simple. Lure him to bid, then hack the gallery screens to broadcast proof of his theft, emails, code samples, the stolen algorithm's fingerprints. The press, tipped off by Julian's contacts, waited in the crowd, their cameras ready. It was a high-stakes gamble, one that could end Victor's empire or cement Elise's downfall. Julian stood beside her, his black suit sharp, his storm-gray eyes scanning the room. He's here, he murmured, nodding toward Victor, who lounged near the bar, his silver hair gleaming, his smile predatory. You ready? Elise's fingers tightened on her clutch, her tablet inside synced to the hack. Let's end this. The auction began, the auctioneer's voice a smooth cadence. Paintings flashed on the screens, a Picasso, a Basquiat, then the Rothko, its red and orange hues pulsing like a heartbeat. Victor raised his paddle, his bid confident, oblivious to the trap. Elise's pulse raced, her anxiety screaming that this could backfire, that the hack might fail, that she'd lose everything. Julian's hand brushed her back, a silent anchor, and she exhaled, focusing. Now, she whispered, tapping her tablet. The screens flickered, the Rothko vanishing. In its place, a timeline appeared, Victor's emails to the shell company, screenshots of her stolen algorithm, proof he'd built his platform on her work. Gasps rippled through the crowd, cameras flashing. Victor's face paled, his paddle dropping. Ladies and gentlemen, Elise said, stepping forward, her voice clear over the murmurs. This is the truth about Victor Lang. A thief, not a visionary. Nexus is my work, my legacy. He can't take that. The room erupted, reporters surging forward, questions flying. Victor's eyes met hers, his shock morphing to rage. You'll regret this, he spat, but security was already moving, escorting him out as the press hounded him. Elise's legs trembled, but she stood tall, Julian at her side. The victory was hers, yet it felt hollow. Her anxiety whispered she traded one battle for another, that the spotlight would expose her flaws, her past, her fears. She glanced at Julian, his expression a mix of pride and something deeper, and her heart twisted. He'd made this possible, but what did he want in return? They slipped out to a side terrace, the Seine glittering below, Paris's lights a soft glow. Rain had stopped, leaving the air cool, sharp. "You did it," Julian said, his voice warm. "He's finished. For now." Elise leaned against the railing, her crimson dress catching the breeze. "But this, it changes everything. The press, the scrutiny. I'm not built for that. You're built for more than you know." He stepped closer, his hand cupping her cheek, his thumb tracing her jaw. "You're unstoppable, Elise." Her breath caught, her anxiety warring with desire. His touch, his belief in her, cracked her defenses wide open. She wanted to kiss him, to lose herself in this moment, but fear held her back, fear of betrayal, of losing herself to someone else's orbit. "What are we doing, Julian?" she asked, her voice raw. "Figuring it out," he said, his eyes searching hers. "Together." He leaned in, his lips brushing hers, soft at first, then deepening, a fire that burned away her doubts. She kissed him back, her hands on his chest, the world fading to the rhythm of their breaths. For the first time, her anxiety quieted, replaced by a reckless hope. But as they pulled apart, Victor's words echoed, "You'll regret this." And deep down, she knew the war wasn't over. New York, July 2025. The city hummed beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of Elise's Tribeca penthouse, a symphony of car horns and neon lights. Inside, the space was a haven of understated luxury. White oak floors, a marble fireplace, abstract art in bold blues and golds. Elise sat on a cream suede sofa, her laptop open, news alerts flashing. Victor Lang disgraced. Crypto mogul exposed as fraud. The Paris auction had worked. Victor's empire was crumbling, his platform blacklisted, his investors fleeing. Yet Elise felt no triumph. Her anxiety, a familiar shadow, coiled tighter, whispering that victory came at a cost. The press had descended after the Gagosian sting, their headlines a double-edged sword. Nexus was hailed as revolutionary, but Elise's past, Brooklyn roots, scholarship kid, single mother struggle was dissected, her every flaw magnified. X buzzed with praise and vitriol, inspiring rags to riches story alongside she's in over her head. Her investors were steady for now, but the scrutiny felt like a noose. She'd won, but at what price? Her phone buzzed, Lila checking in. "You okay?" The board's thrilled, but X is a circus. "Want me to handle the PR?" Elise rubbed her temples, her voice flat. "Draft a statement. Keep it short, Nexus is stronger than ever, blah blah. I need a break." "Done." "And Elise? You did the impossible. Try to breathe." Lila's warmth was a lifeline, but it couldn't quiet the storm inside. Elise set the phone down, her gaze drifting to a photo on the coffee table. Her and her mother 10 years ago, before the fights, before the words that cut deeper than knives. "You'll never be enough." Her mother's voice echoed, fueling the anxiety that had spiked since Paris. She'd started therapy last week, a tentative step urged by Lila, but the sessions felt like peeling skin, exposing wounds she'd buried. A knock at the door jolted her. Julian. He'd flown to New York after Paris, his art deals aligning with her return, but his presence was more than convenience. Their kiss on the terrace, the fire of it lingered, a reckless hope she couldn't shake. She opened the door, and there he was, jeans, a black sweater, his storm gray eyes softening at the sight of her. "You look like you need a drink," he said, stepping inside, a bottle of Bordeaux in hand. "Or a vacation." She managed a half-smile, closing the door. "Both. But I'll settle for the wine." They moved to the kitchen, a sleek expanse of quartz and chrome. Julian uncorked the bottle, pouring 2 glasses, the wine's ruby glow catching the light. "To surviving," he said, raising his. "To fighting," she countered, clinking her glass against his. The first sip was velvet, grounding her, but her anxiety hummed, a warning she couldn't name. Julian leaned against the counter, studying her. You're not celebrating. Why? She sighed, setting her glass down. I thought exposing Victor would feel freeing. But it's just louder the press my own head. She hesitated, her voice dropping. Therapy's helping, but it's hard. Digging up the past, my mom, the way she made me feel small. It's like I'm still proving I'm enough. His expression shifted, a flicker of pain crossing his face. I get it. My family's scandal, my brother selling our legacy. Left scars I'm still untangling. You're not small, Elise. You're a damn supernova. Her throat tightened, his words piercing her armor. She wanted to believe him, to lean into the warmth of his gaze, but doubt clung like damp air. Supernovas burn out, she said, her voice soft. Or explode. Then let's make it a hell of a show. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, and the air charged electric. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. A news alert. Victor Langvau's comeback. The truth will out. Her stomach dropped. He's not done, she whispered, showing Julian the headline. He's planning something. Julian's jaw tightened. Let him try. We'll be ready. The we stirred her, a mix of comfort and fear. She was falling for him hard, but trust was a tightrope, and her past, Victor's betrayal, her mother's cruelty, made every step precarious. Still, as Julian's hand lingered on hers, she let herself hope, just for tonight. They cooked together, a quiet ritual, pasta with truffle oil, a salad of arugula and figs. The act, simple and grounding, eased her anxiety's grip. Over dinner they talked not of Victor or empires but of small things, her love for jazz, his obsession with vintage motorcycles. For a moment the world was just them. The city's pulse a distant hum. As they cleared plates, Julian's phone rang. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. I need to take this, he said, stepping onto the balcony. Through the glass, Elise watched his animated gestures, his voice low but sharp. When he returned, his eyes were guarded. Trouble? She asked, drawing a plate. Family, he said, his tone clipped. My brother's out of prison. Wants to meet. Her heart sank, recognizing the weight in his voice. You don't have to face him alone. He looked at her, surprise softening his edges. You offering to hold my hand? More like a baseball bat, she said, her smile wry. He laughed, pulling her close, his arms a shelter. Your trouble, Elise Moreau. Likewise, she murmured, her head against his chest. But as she breathed him in, sandalwood wine him, her anxiety whispered, trouble breaks hearts. The Met Gala's after-party pulsed at a Manhattan rooftop club, its terrace draped in fairy lights and orchids, the skyline a glittering crown. Elise navigated the crowd, her gold gown, a structured off-shoulder masterpiece, shimmering under the strobes. At 32, she was no stranger to high society events, but tonight's stakes felt personal. Nexus had survived Victor's attack, its investor confidence rebounding after Paris, but the ex-vitriol lingered, and a new rival, Isabel Crane, an art dealer with ties to Victor, had emerged, whispering doubts about Elise's stability. Tonight, she needed allies, and the gala's elite were a battlefield. Julian was at her side, his black tuxedo sharp, his presence a steady hum against her anxiety. Since their night in her penthouse, they'd grown closer, their late-night talks and stolen kisses a fragile bridge over their guarded hearts. But his brother's return loomed, a shadow he wouldn't fully share, and Elise's own fears, of trust, of falling too deep, kept her on edge. You're tense, Julian murmured, handing her a flute of champagne. Crane's here, isn't she? Elise nodded, scanning the crowd. Lila heard she's pitching to my investors, calling Nexus a flash in the pan. She's Victor's pawn, I'm sure of it. Then let's remind them who you are. He offered his arm, his smile a challenge. Dance. She hesitated, her anxiety spiking. Public eyes, public judgment, but his steadiness pulled her in. They moved to the dance floor. the DJ spinning a sultry remix of jazz and electronica. His hand on her waist was firm, guiding, and she let herself lean into it, the crowd blurring. "You're good at this," she said, her voice low. "Years of practice," he teased, but his eyes held hers, raw and searching. "You're holding up an empire, Elise. Don't forget that." Her throat tightened, his belief a balm to her doubts. But as the song ended, Isabel Crane appeared, her silver gown glinting, her smile sharp as a blade. "Ms. Moreau," she purred. "Quite the show in Paris. Though some say it was more spectacle than substance." Elise's spine stiffened, but she matched Isabel's tone. "Some lack the vision to see substance. Nexus is rewriting trust. Sorry if that's hard to grasp." Isabel's eyes narrowed, but before she could retort, Julian cut in, his voice smooth. "Isabel, your last deal tanked, didn't it? Careful throwing stones." The crowd tittered and Isabel's smile froze. She retreated, but her parting glance promised trouble. Elise exhaled, her anxiety easing, but Julian's tension was palpable. "You didn't have to do that," she said, touching his arm. "She's a vulture," he said, his voice tight. "And I'm done watching people like her or Victor come for you." His protectiveness stirred her, but it also unnerved her. They moved to a quieter corner, the city's glow framing them. "What's going on, Julian? You've been off since that call." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "My brother Eric. He's in New York, wants to make amends. But he's the reason my family fell apart. His deals, his lies. I don't know if I can face him." Elise's heart ached, her own past echoing in his words. "You don't have to forgive him. But facing him, it might free you." He looked at her, vulnerability cracking his charm. "How do you do it? Keep fighting despite everything." She hesitated, her therapy sessions surfacing raw, painful but clarifying. "I'm learning to face the pain, not bury it. My mom, she made me feel worthless. I'm still unlearning that. But every step forward, it's like I'm rewriting her voice." Julian's hand found hers, his grip tight. "You're rewriting the world, Elise. And I'm here for it." The party swirled on, but they stayed in their bubble, sharing truths over champagne. Elise spoke of her therapy, her anxiety, defying the stigma she'd feared. Julian admitted his shame, the weight of his family's name. Their honesty was a bridge, fragile but real, and as they left the party, hand in hand, Elise felt a shift. Not just love, but trust, tentative and terrifying. But as they stepped into the night, a new X alert flashed on her phone. Isabel Crane alleges Nexus code flaws, cites insider source. Elise's heart sank. Victor's shadow lingered, and the fight was far from over. New York, August 2025. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered like a jewel box, its crystal chandeliers casting prisms across gilded walls and polished parquet floors. The charity gala, a magnet for Manhattan's elite, buzzed with the clink of champagne flutes and the rustle of couture gowns. Elise stood near a marble pillar, her sapphire gown, a flowing off-shoulder design with a slit that teased her thigh, drawing murmurs from the crowd. At 32, she was no stranger to these rooms, but tonight felt like a reckoning. Nexus had weathered Victor Lang's attacks and Isabel Crane's whispers, but the X-storm still raged, questioning her legitimacy, her stability, her right to this world. Her anxiety, a constant shadow, hummed beneath her skin, amplified by the eyes on her, some admiring, some predatory. Therapy had helped, peeling back layers of her mother's cruelty and her own self-doubt, but the gala spotlight burned. She'd come to secure a new investor, a tech billionaire who could propel Nexus globally, but Isabel's latest X-post, alleging code flaws, citing an insider, had spooked him. Elise needed to charm, to prove she was more than the headlines. Julian appeared at her side, his black tuxedo tailored to perfection, his storm gray eyes warm yet guarded. Since their night in her penthouse, their bond had deepened, late-night confessions, shared vulnerabilities, but his brother Eric's return loomed, a wound he barely spoke of. Tonight he was her anchor, his presence easing her nerves even as it stirred new fears. Falling for him was a risk, one her heart craved but her past warned against. "You look like you're plotting a coup," he said, handing her a flute of Veuve Clicquot, his smile a quiet challenge. "Close," she said, her lips curving. "I'm here to win over Marcus Way." If Isabel's lies haven't scared him off. Julian's jaw tightened. "She's Victor's puppet. I've got a contact digging into her. She's overplayed her hand." Elise nodded, grateful but wary. Julian's loyalty was unwavering, but his secrets, his brother, his art world deals, kept her on edge. "You sure you're okay? Eric's in town." "That's not nothing." His smile faltered, a crack in his charm. "I'm meeting him tomorrow. Not sure I'm ready, but you were right. Facing him might free me." Her heart ached, his vulnerability mirroring her own. Before she could respond, Isabel Crane swept toward them, her silver gown glinting like a blade, her smile venomous. "Elise, darling," she purred. "Bold of you to show up after that mess. People are talking." Elise's spine stiffened, her anxiety spiking, but she matched Isabel's tone. "Let them talk. Nexus is solid, unlike your credibility, Isabel. How's Victor's leash feel?" The crowd nearby hushed, heads turning. Isabel's eyes flashed, but she laughed, a brittle sound. "Careful, Elise. Insider leaks don't lie. Your code's crumbling and so's your empire." Julian stepped forward, his voice low, lethal. "Back off, Isabel. Your insider is a fiction, and we've got proof you're tied to Victor's shell company. Want to test us?" Isabel's smile froze, her retreat swift as whispers spread. Elise exhaled, her hands trembling, but Julian's steadiness grounded her. "You didn't have to do that," she said, touching his arm. "I wanted to," he said, his eyes locking on hers. "No one comes for you, Elise. Not on my watch." Her throat tightened, his protectiveness a fire she couldn't douse. They moved to the dance floor, the orchestra swelling with a slow, haunting waltz. His hand on her waist was firm, her fingers resting on his shoulder, and as they moved, the world blurred. Chandeliers, gowns, judgmental eyes fading to static. "You're too good at this," she murmured, her voice soft. "Only with you," he said, his breath grazing her ear. The air charged electric, and for a moment she let herself believe in them. But the moment shattered. Marcus Way, the billionaire, approached, his expression guarded. Miss Moreau, impressive resilience, but Isabel's claims raise questions. "I need guarantees before I invest." Elise's heart sank, but she held his gaze, her voice steady. "Nexus has been audited by 3 independent firms. 0 flaws. Isabel's claims are baseless, spread by a disgraced competitor. I'll send you the reports tonight." Way nodded, intrigued but non-committal. As he walked away, Elise's anxiety surged, whispering she'd failed. Julian pulled her close, his voice low. "You've got this. He'll come around." She wanted to believe him, but doubt clung like damp air. As the gala wound down, they stepped onto a balcony, the city's skyline a glittering promise. Elise leaned against the railing, her sapphire gown catching the breeze. "I'm tired, Julian. Of fighting, of proving myself. Therapy's helping, but it's like I'm still that kid, scared I'll never be enough." He turned to her, his eyes raw. "You're enough. More than enough. And I'm not just saying that because I'm falling for you." Her breath caught, his confession cracking her defenses. She stepped closer, her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "I'm falling too," she whispered, the words terrifying, exhilarating. "But I'm scared." "Me too," he said, his hand cupping her cheek. Their kiss was slow, searing, a vow against the chaos. But as they pulled apart, her phone buzzed, an X alert. Victor Langsu's Nexus alleges defamation. The war wasn't over. Monaco, August 2025. The Aurora swayed gently off the coast, its deck gleaming under a starlit sky, the Mediterranean a mirror of infinite black. Elise stood at the railing, her white linen dress fluttering in the breeze, her bare feet cool against the teak. The air smelled of salt and possibility, a stark contrast to the chaos of New York. She and Julian had returned to Monaco to host a charity auction for mental health initiatives, a cause Elise had embraced since starting therapy. It was a bold move, public and personal, but tonight felt like a turning point, a chance to rewrite her story. The auction, held earlier at the Hôtel de Paris, had been a triumph. Nexus's reputation was rebounding, Marcus Way had signed on as an investor, and Victor's lawsuit was unraveling, his evidence flimsy against Elise's proof. Isabel Crane had vanished from the scene, her ties to Victor exposed by Julian's contact. Yet Elise's anxiety lingered, a quiet hum, reminding her that peace was fragile. Julian joined her, his shirt unbuttoned, his storm gray eyes reflecting the stars. He'd faced his brother Eric in New York, a raw confrontation that left him quieter but lighter, as if a weight had lifted. "You were incredible tonight," he said, handing her a glass of rose. "The auction raised millions. You're changing lives, Elise." She smiled, the wine's crisp bite grounding her. "We're changing lives. You didn't have to co-host, but you did." He shrugged, leaning beside her. "I wanted to. For you and maybe for me. Facing Eric, helping with this. It's like I'm finally moving forward." Her heart swelled, his vulnerability a mirror to her own. Therapy had taught her to face her past, her mother's cruelty, the stigma of her anxiety, and tonight, speaking briefly at the auction about mental health, she'd felt unburdened, defying the elite's judgment. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice soft. "And us." He turned to her, his gaze intense. "Us. That's what matters now, isn't it?" She nodded, stepping closer, her hand finding his. "It's scary, but it's real. I trust you, Julian. More than I thought I could." His smile was a sunrise, warm and unguarded. "I trust you too. And I love you, Elise. All of you, Brooklyn, Nexus, the fire, the fear." Her breath caught, the words a jolt. She'd known it, felt it, but hearing it cracked her open. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice trembling. Their kiss was fierce, a promise sealed against the sea's whisper, her anxiety quieted by the truth of them. They stood together, the yacht sway a gentle rhythm. Elise looked out at the horizon, the stars endless, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Victor's shadow was fading, her empire was hers, and Julian was her partner, not her savior. She'd learned resilience, not just in code but in herself, through therapy, through love, through choosing trust over fear. "We're not done fighting," she said, her smile wry. "There's always another battle." He laughed, pulling her close. "As long as we're fighting together." The sea stretched on, infinite, and for the first time Elise wasn't afraid. She'd rewritten her story, not alone but with him, and the future was theirs to claim. New York, September 2025. The boardroom at Nexus's Manhattan headquarters gleamed with modernist elegance, glass walls etched with subtle circuits, a polished ebony table, and a panoramic view of the Hudson River, its surface glinting under a late summer sun. Elise stood at the head, her charcoal suit tailored to precision, her dark hair pulled into a sleek bun. At 32, she was a force, her cryptocurrency platform a beacon of innovation, but today's meeting felt like a crucible. Victor Lang's defamation lawsuit against Nexus had escalated, with new claims alleging Elise had fabricated evidence in Paris to ruin him. The board demanded answers, and her anxiety, though dulled by therapy, coiled like a spring. The room buzzed with tension as the board, 10 executives in crisp suits and sharp gazes, settled in. Claire Dubois, the silver-haired investor who'd backed Elise in Paris, spoke first. "Ms. Moreau, Victor's claims are gaining traction on X. He's alleging you hacked his systems to plant evidence. We need proof this ends now." Elise's pulse raced, but her voice was steel. Victor's desperate. His lawsuit is a smokescreen. His platform collapsed because it was built on my stolen algorithm. We have the original code, time-stamped, and independent audits proving Nexus's integrity. She tapped her tablet, projecting a timeline of Victor's theft, the Paris sting, and Nexus's clean record. He's the fraud, not me. Amir Khan, the younger board member, leaned forward. Convincing, but X is brutal. Public perception matters. How do you plan to counter this? Elise exhaled, her anxiety whispering she'd lose them. Transparency. We go live on X and major platforms tonight, presenting our evidence, code, audits, the Paris hack data. No secrets. Nexus thrives on trust, and so do I. Murmurs rippled, some approving, some skeptical. Claire nodded, her gaze softening. Bold. Do it well, Elise, and we're with you. As the meeting ended, Elise's phone buzzed. Lila, urgent. Victor's at a press conference downtown, spinning his story. He's got Isabel Crane with him, backing his claims. Elise's stomach twisted. Isabel, Victor's pawn, had vanished after her failed attacks, but now she was back. A venomous echo of Victor's betrayal. Get me everything on that conference, Elise said, her voice tight. And tell Julian I need him. Julian Voss arrived within the hour. His presence a quiet storm in her office. His navy sweater and jeans contrasted the corporate sleekness, but his storm gray eyes held a fire that steadied her. Since the Monaco auction, their love had solidified, raw, honest, a partnership forged in shared scars. He'd faced his brother Eric, finding closure, and his support for Elise was unwavering, though his art world deals kept him guarded. Victor's playing dirty, Julian said, scanning Lila's intel on his phone. Isabel's claiming she saw you manipulate the Paris data. It's a lie, but they've got doctored emails to sell it. Elise's hands trembled, her anxiety surging. He's trying to bury me before I go live. If the board sees this, they'll waver. Julian's hand found hers, his grip firm. Then we move faster. My hacker friends already traced Isabel's emails. They're fakes, routed through Victor's old shell company. We can debunk this live with you. The we warmed her, but fear lingered. Going live meant exposing her vulnerabilities, her anxiety, her past, to a world ready to tear her apart. Therapy had taught her to face those fears, but this felt like stepping into a lion's den. If this backfires, she said, her voice low, Nexus is done. I'm done. It won't. Julian's eyes locked on hers, fierce. You're not just fighting for Nexus. You're fighting for you, who you are, who you've always been. And I'm right here. Her throat tightened, his belief cracking her doubts. She nodded, resolve hardening. Let's do this. That night, Elise stood in Nexus's media studio, a sleek space with LED screens and a single camera trained on her. Lila managed the tech, Julian stood off camera, and millions watched live on X, YouTube, and news feeds. Elise wore a white blazer, her expression calm despite the storm inside. I'm Elise Moreau, she began, her voice clear. Nexus is built on trust, and tonight, I'm here to prove it. She walked through the evidence, her original code, Victor's theft, the Paris stings data, and now Isabel's faked emails, exposed by Julian's hacker. Victor Lang and Isabel Crane want you to doubt me, she said, her gaze steady. They're betting on fear. I'm betting on truth. She paused, her voice softening. I've faced anxiety my whole life. It's made me question my worth, my place. But building Nexus, fighting for it, taught me I'm enough. Trust isn't just code, it's courage. The X response was instant. Hashtags trending. Hashtag Nexus Truth. Hashtag Elise Fights. Supporters rallied, the board issued a statement backing her. And Victor's press conference crumbled, his lies exposed. Elise stepped off camera, her legs shaking, and Julian pulled her into his arms. You were incredible, he whispered. But her anxiety whispered back. Victor won't stop. and deep down she knew one final move awaited. Monaco, October 2025. The Hotel de Paris's private dining room glowed with understated opulence. Ivory linens, gold-rimmed plates, and a crystal chandelier casting soft light over a table set for 10. Elise sat at the head, her emerald dress a nod to the gala where this journey began, her posture relaxed yet commanding. Tonight was a celebration. Nexus had secured a global partnership with Marcus Way's tech empire, its valuation soaring past projections. Victor Lang's lawsuit had collapsed, his reputation in tatters, and Isabel Crane faced fraud charges, her alliance with Victor her undoing. Elise at 32 had won not just her empire but her sense of self. The room buzzed with her inner circle, Lila, radiant in navy silk, Marcus Way, his sharp eyes warm with respect, and Nexus's key engineers, their pride palpable. Julian sat beside her, his black suit crisp, his storm gray eyes catching hers with a quiet intensity. Their love, forged through battles, was a steady flame, no longer shadowed by doubt. Therapy had helped Elise embrace her anxiety as part of her strength, and Julian's closure with his brother had freed him to love without reservation. To Nexus, Marcus said, raising a glass of Chateau d'Yquem, its golden hue shimmering, and to Elise, who redefined trust. Glasses clinked, laughter rippling, but Elise's smile held a private weight. She donated a portion of Nexus's profits to mental health initiatives, a legacy born from her own journey. Tonight wasn't just about wealth, it was about meaning, a lesson in financial literacy she'd learned the hard way. Money was power, but purpose was priceless. As dessert, lavender creme brulee was served. Julian leaned close, his voice low. "You're glowing. This is your moment." "It's ours," she corrected, her hand brushing his. "I wouldn't be here without you." He smiled, a rare vulnerability in his eyes. "I've got something for you." He slid a small velvet box across the table. Not a ring but a gesture. Inside was a pendant, a tiny gold circuit, symbolizing Nexus, her heart, their bond. "For Nexus is you, Elise. Always." Her throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. "It's perfect," she whispered, fastening it around her neck. The room applauded, Lila cheering, but for Elise it was just them, a world of two. Later, they stepped onto the hotel's terrace, Monaco's harbor glittering below, yachts bobbing under a crescent moon. Elise leaned against the railing, the pendant cool against her skin, Julian's arm around her. "What now?" she asked, her voice soft. "We live," he said, his lips grazing her temple. "Together." She smiled, the horizon endless, her anxiety a quiet hum, no longer a cage. She'd faced betrayal, built an empire, and found love. Not a fairy tale, but a hard-won truth. The future was theirs, and she was ready. Monaco, December 2025. The Aurora rocked gently off the coast, its deck a haven under a velvet sky, stars scattered like diamonds. Elise stood at the bow, her cashmere sweater soft against the chill, her hair loose in the breeze. Julian joined her, a blanket draped over his shoulders, his warmth a steady promise. The sea stretched infinite, a mirror of their possibilities. "Nexus is global now," she said, her voice awed. "And the mental health fund, it's changing lives." "You're changing lives," he corrected, pulling her close. "I'm just lucky to be along for the ride." She laughed, her heart full. Therapy had taught her to embrace her scars, and love, Julian's, her own, had taught her to soar. "We're not done," she said, her eyes on the horizon. "There's always more." "Good," he said, kissing her, slow and sure. "I'm all in." The stars burned bright, and Elise knew whatever came, they'd face it together. Their love a legacy stronger than code.